Good morning. I'm Sharon Ryback, and today I want to talk with you a little bit about the complexity of accountability. I want to add on to this piece that I've talked about before and be more specific about the challenges around problem solving and decision making for teachers. So in prior videos and in the writing, I've really talked about the issue around the numerical collection of data that teachers are trying to do, that the challenges are, in the course of a year, if you have 80 to 100,000 pieces of data, around 25 students or around 100 students at a high school, how are you really going to be successful at managing that data? But even if you had the data all collapsed and all figured out, and it really led you to show you what the problem was, there's still the issue of solving that problem and then making decisions about what it is you're going to do to fix that problem. And here's where we get into some other additional challenges around problem solving and decision making. It's my belief that the expectations for teachers and schools has really exceeded the capacity of that individual teacher to be successful. Can anybody really do all of this? There's a gentleman named Birnbaum in 2000. He states that the size of education, the complexity, and the cost has put this greater demand on accountability. And we're trying to follow the lead of business, the military, and the economic world, and we're looking at ways to process information. And certainly there's some headway being made, but are we really able to do what we're setting out to do? I think I know technology for the first time has led us to a place where we can really rapidly manage data, but in very immense amounts of data. So the technology is there to do that, but what's the decisions that are going to be on the other end of manipulation of that data? And I think that's where we're really struggling still in education. We really haven't come up with a reasonable approach to the problem-solving part. So let's assume that poor old Mildred, she has all the data she needs and she can clearly see what the problems are in her classroom. But now she has to have it has to be relevant to what she's supposed to be teaching. It has to be accurate, and we have to know it's accurate, and it has to be timely data. In other words, we can't find out about something 6 months after it's occurred, and that's really the kinds of things that teachers are getting right now. They're getting it very late. It may not be relevant to what they're supposed to be teaching, and we're really, I think, questioning sometimes the relevance and also the accuracy of it. So we want the teachers to be able to have this good information to drive decisions. But just before you run out and start developing all this software to collect the data, I want you to think a little bit about problem solving and decision making. I have to have my coffee. So now they've got the data, now they have to problem solve, and they have to make decisions that are going to create a host of additional problems for the teachers. So there's a problem with problem solving. As humans, we develop schemas. I'm going to use an example of the leaky faucet. Okay, so you see the faucet is leaky, and you've had prior experiences knowing that you can put a washer in that leaky faucet, and with 90% to 90 to 100% accuracy, you probably, with a new washer, will solve that leaky faucet problem. And you know that because you've had prior experiences building schemas. And we know that there's a shift from the problem to the solution, and it's a pretty quick kind of thing. The schema suddenly pops into your mind. You know you've processed that before, and you build these schemas of solving problems in your life. So every time you hit various problems, your prior experiences have allowed you to solve those problems more successfully. So where does that fit in with a teacher? Well, you think about 25 kids, and you've had 25 years of teaching. you've developed a lot of schematas around problems and solving problems with students. Probably the best area to think about this is in terms of discipline. Teachers have a lot of tools in their toolboxes around solving discipline problems because they've had a lot of years of experience doing that. So the more experience you have, the more solutions you have to problems as they develop, and these become sort of embedded in your practice. Now, that's good if they're working. The problem comes in when we talk about curriculum, and we talk about content, and we talk about learning. We don't have huge banks of solutions to problems in education. For when kids, we see kids struggling in certain areas. If the kid can't do this, then do this. We have not really built those kinds of structures. So let's imagine that the child's not passing the test on multiplication. So the child's taking this multiplication test and failing it. So teacher one thinks, well, he's just not putting enough effort into it. He's not trying hard enough. He doesn't have the interest in doing this. Second teacher might say, well, he's having some trouble with memorization, and I'm also seeing that in reading. He's having trouble with sight words. Third teacher might say, well, he's just too slow, and he must be doing the multiplication and doing all of it through addition. So all of those could be correct, or one of them could be correct, but that teacher has to start looking and trying to solve that problem. What is the cause of that problem? And then they have to make decisions based on their determination of what that problem is. So there's a guy named Herbert Simon, and he worked primarily in the field of economics, and he says that the decision making is only rational in very constrained, restrictive conditions. So let me read that off for you so I don't misquote Mr. Simon, but he contends that the rational model assumes that the decision makers have knowledge of all their alternatives and of the consequences of implementing those alternatives. So go back to the washer idea. When you know that the faucet is leaky and you replace the washer, you have a pretty strong idea of what the consequences of implementing that decision and doing that, solving that problem, and what the results will be. But real decisions in classrooms often are incomplete and imperfect, and the teacher doesn't have all the information, and they really don't know the results of how those alternatives are going to be responded to by the student. If you go to the doctor and you have a rash and they've seen that rash before and they have experience with that, they know this cream will fix that rash with a pretty good likelihood of reliability. Honestly, we don't have stuff like that in education. We don't really have a lot of research-based solutions to very, very small pieces of problems. If we see the child doing this, try this. And so when you look at what Simon considers to be the faults or the problems with rational decision making, I think they come into imperfect and incomplete information. Yeah, we don't have enough information often, and it's very incomplete, and it's coming at us very quickly. The complexity of the problem, absolutely. Is this tied in with a visual memory issue? Is this a language issue? Is this related to the child's prior knowledge? It's very complex. Our human information processing capacity, Simon says, is another issue around rational decision making. Well, sure. How much of this information can you take, multiply it times all those students in your classroom, and then try to make decisions based on all these things and happening at one time? I mean, it really is beyond what people can really be expected to do. The time available for decision making is another barrier to rational decision making. Teachers don't have the kind of time they need to sit down and think about these things in the very high level of cognitive expectation that is being demanded of them. I mean, this is real heavy-duty cognitive work. and the conflicting preferences decision makers have for organizational goals. In other words, a teacher might be thinking to themselves, well, I would like to do this, but my organization doesn't support that. We could do this, but my organization doesn't support that. Or my organization wants me to do that, but I don't necessarily believe in that. So there's lots of those kind of conflicting things as well. So my point is that even if we have the data, we still have a big problem with decision making and problem solving in there. So we get the data, but we still have to, we don't have really enough information around the problem definition and what it really is and what then we're going to do to fix that. And then when we do, are we walking into a dark room or a black room with an arrow and just shooting it in the dark? Are we really have much of a chance to hit the target? And then measure what we're doing. And I know this is what we've talked about with RTI and many other things, but I want people to understand the complexity of this and really what the research is saying about problem solving and decision making and schema development. So this teacher's trying to do it with every student, every issue, tap into what they needed, make the necessary adjustments, monitor the decision, make adjustments. It's really a daunting task. My colleagues are getting shorter from being pounded on top of their heads and not really understanding why they can't reach the levels of success that are expected of them. We're going to talk about how to build that bridge, but I wanted to really lay out the complexity of what I believe are the challenges in education today. So I'll go back with one more video and sort of rehash all these issues in one place, and then we're going to move on and talk about what I believe can be some solutions. Alrighty, take care.